Hello, people. Welcome to Main Event Boxing Talk. And we're back for another show. Normally, we don't do shows this close together. Welcome back, Tom.
Hey, good to be back. I'm glad we're getting busy again.
So am I. Right, let's start with the Josh Kelly card. I'm just going to pull up a few fights and let me just put Josh Kelly in the system and we can have it up. On this card. Did you watch most of the fights on the card?
I did. I didn't watch every round, but I skimmed through them. You know, some I watched more than others, but they were good.
I watched the first fight. There was a guy called Johnny Fisher, who's a British heavyweight, who fought a guy called Matt Gordon. Did you see that fight?
Yes, I did.
It's hard to tell how far this Fisher guy's going to go. I don't have a clue. I know he had a slight amateur background, but I don't know. You can't tell after only one fight.
No, that's the thing. We got to wait a while. Somebody could look promising, and then around 12 fights, they get beat, you know, so we'll see.
Nick, I didn't watch the Jordan Gill fight, so I'm not going to talk about it. Did you watch the Florin Marku fight against Ryland Charlton?
Marco, yeah, I watched that one.
Florin Marku is like a guy who comes from Albania, and they're trying to promote him as like one of the British fighters. And the way he's getting brought along, if you notice that, he's getting brought along like a British fighter.
Right. Now, the guy he stopped his opponent, correct?
Yeah. The guy.
Yeah, he went. They both went down, but that guy he was fighting was a very strong puncher.
Oh, he was.
Oh.
I have to be honest. I don't think much of Marco. I don't think he's going to go very far. If you're getting dropped, and that was his 9th fight, right? If you're supposed to be good, you don't get knocked down by people who are 6-0, do you? You know, come on. The British welterweight domestic scene is not that. If you take away the top guys like the Kell Brooks, the Amir Khans, and the Conor Benns, it's pretty weak, really.
What about AJ?
I'm talking about the welterweights.
Oh, the welterweights. Yeah. Okay. Well, look, I'm of the opinion, you know, even great fighters have gotten knocked down. The thing is, do you get back up? That's the thing. Anybody could make a mistake and get caught.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you won't be a great fighter.
Yeah. But Marku is they're trading him to be the next like world champion. Hello, Spencer. How are you?
Is Spencer here?
Yeah, he is, but his audio's connected. Hello, Spencer.
Okay. Spencer.
Maybe his
audio's
still.
All right, there you go.
Hey, there he is.
How you doing?
What's going on?
You all
right.
We were talking about Marku, the fight with Marku. Did you see the British card? The British card, the one with Josh Kelly.
Nah, only that one.
Only that one.
We'll talk about it in a minute. But this Florin Marku guy keeps mentioning Conor Benn's name, and this Marku guy shit. He's fucking shit.
I heard about the news though. I heard that call out that he called out Conor Benn and then he said that's who he wants to fight or whatever. I heard that.
I'll send you the fight after the show. Florin Marku is like 7-0, but he's been handled the same way a British prospect would be. He's 28 years old. This guy he talks a lot, but he's shit. Right, we'll move on.
Oh, I just hate when you say that.
No, because he's shit. The guy, they make out that he's good. He's all shit. You know, we'll move on. Right. The Avanasi and Josh Kelly fight. Well, I was surprised how early it ended, guys. You know.
I wasn't, and I think we all talked about this. Was that I felt that he was being brought along too fast. He was having trouble making the weight, and they just overmatched him. You know, the guy was fooling around too much. You know, I saw in his last fight, he was getting busted up a little bit, and fooling around, and was open for punches. He was brought along too quickly.
Yeah, and I guess there's not really that many welterweights. Maybe they could have brought up some 140 guys on the British scene. Like, there's not that many welterweights in and around his weight class will push the needle. You know, maybe if he goes up to 154, he could fight them guys like Edington, Cheeseman, Fowler, those guys that, you know.
But if you look at the British domestic scene, you've got Conor Benn, Florin Marku, and then you've got like Kell Brook and Amir Khan, obviously those guys on their way out. But there's, like you said, Spencer, there's nobody really that can really test him in Britain. There aren't that many good welterweights left in Britain, are there? Really?
No.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't that last fight at 154?
No, it was at it was a 147. Well,
no, yeah, it was
okay.
It was the EBU welterweight title.
Okay, yeah. Maybe I'm thinking he should have went up to 154 because he looked too big for a welterweight.
That's what what's it called said after the fight, that Eddie was saying that he gonna move Josh up to 154.
Yeah, well, he didn't one fight too late.
Yeah. I mean, losing to Avanasian isn't, at this part of his career, isn't the worst thing that could have happened. The way he lost might not, you know, might not be good, but because he was winning some rounds, he wasn't like
he was winning
totally out of. He wasn't looking totally out of the fight or anything like that. It just, you know, what he was doing wasn't going to be able to keep Avanasian at bay for so much longer.
Do you know?
Carry on. Well, let me say this: if you watch what happened, the corner stopped the fight before he got too badly hurt. They were probably knowing, you know, look, this is not going to happen. Let's not let this guy get beat up too much and looks too bad or get hurt, because we could make more money with him.
Especially coming off the week before that, when Warrington, people was criticizing them keeping Warrington in too long, like 4 or 5 rounds in too long.
Right. So that being the case, you know, people make too much out of a loss. You know, years ago, it didn't mean anything if you lost. Yeah, you lost. But then you could come back and win 10 fights in a row or 12 fights in a row.
It baffles me, because you would hear of guys wanting the bigger names to face off each other, and they'll say things like, a loss ain't the end of anybody's career. But then on the same note, if somebody suffers a loss, they'll look at them and like, yeah, their career might be on the downside now. You know, like
yeah, well, that's marketing. You know, when Floyd is saying, yeah, the best ever 50-0. You know, look at the run of welterweight wins, and also that Sugar Ray Robinson had, and Willie Papp. And those guys, they had longer records of being undefeated, even Julio Cesar Chavez.
Without question.
What makes me annoyed is that this kid's only had 11. That was only his 11th fight. That's pretty good going. You're fighting the former world champion, your 11th fight. And therefore, people need to be a bit more understanding. You know, real boxing fans, we know that it could take him another 2 years to rebuild his career, but he will get there. I believe he will.
But if he wants to, if he's mentally strong enough to. Because nowadays, when promoters, they want guys undefeated because they can match them for more money and market them better.
David Hay, this loss was the same way when David Hay fought Cole Thompson back in 2004. Exactly the same way he gassed out. That's all that happened with experience. If he'd had more experience and more tougher fights, he would have been ready. But this fight was a couple of years too early, I think, from looking at it.
Plus depending on the guy, right? Coming up, Pacquiao had losses on his record when he was like, when it was the whole big him versus Floyd rivalry. He had a couple of losses on his record already. But
and
people still
knocked
out cold, right? And people were still saying, and this was at a lighter weight where he should have been a little bit more comfortable at, but he at the heavier weight where he was smaller than most of these other guys, they were, you know, those losses didn't matter at that point. They like, you know, he overcame that, he got better, he moved on. So
yeah. And the same is true for Bernard Hopkins, you know, any of these great fighters, they lost. So what? They lose.
But doesn't matter. Fans are so fickle. The casual fans in this country are so fickle. It makes my blood boil. And I'm like, this kid, that's his 11th fight, let him develop. Stop striking him off, you know, let the kid develop.
It's not just there, it's here too.
Hold up. Case in point, Dillian White lost to AJ. right?
Yeah.
Dylan White came back and he was deemed as somebody that Wilder was running from or whatever the case is. AJ lost to Ruiz and AJ was done. He ain't want none of Wilder. He's scared.
Heavyweight is very different. It's easier to build heavyweights back up than it is welterweights, I believe. You know, it really is. It's a different kind of scene.
I mean, without question, you got to you know, got to see the character of a person.
Yeah.
You know, Kovalev, he got knocked out cold. He lost to Ward twice, right? But then he got knocked out cold against Alvarez after winning the fight, but he got knocked out cold.
Yeah.
People thought it was over for him. He suffered 3 losses in like 4 fights or whatever the case is. He's done. But he came back. He got a new trainer. And
he defeated Alvarez. Yeah, right.
He won the rematch. And he clearly won the rematch. He looked better than he did for years. I mean, he wasn't the crusher knocking him out, but he looked good.
To adapt his style to become a boxer, not a puncher. He's now he's just a boxer now.
I mean, and he's always had a decent jab. He had a thudding jab, you know. So he's always had that. You know, his mental state might knock him down a few because of all of this. You know, like
he's shot mentally. He's shot.
Yeah,
and physically.
You know.
Right. We'll move on because we've got quite a bit to cover.
All right.
Dominic Brazil against Otto One. I'll tell you what. For me, Brazil needs to lower his level of opposition down a little bit more. And Wallen looked impressive to me. He threw a lot of punches. He was active. You know, he made the swelling on Brazil's face. I was impressed.
Well, Brazil tried. I got to give him. He was trying, but we all said in the last time we were together that Wallen was the better boxer. You know, and he would be a tough test because of the way he stood up to Fury, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, I would like to. I mean, he looked real good against Brazil. Now, would he be able to look like that versus, say, like an Usyk or even a AJ, or you know, would he be able to move the same way because they're going to give him a different fight? They're not going to be as slow. They're not going to be swinging as wildly as Brazil was, but he did what he had to do to win. So I'm not going to like take credit away from him or anything like that. He did, but just like looking at the landscape of the division, it doesn't. He was hitting Brazil a lot, and Brazil should have like at least went down a couple of times, in my opinion, for a heavyweight. For him to be able to really like compete against the other top guys, he's going to have some type of pop to keep him off them.
Yeah.
You know, to keep
him you said like with Usyk, I think that would be. He wouldn't be as much in danger as opposed to like a Ruiz or an AJ in terms of their punching power, or even Wilder. You know what I mean?
Right. Without question, Usyk. The reason why I picked Usyk, it would be more for style, like, you know, that would be like a heavyweight fight that would have 2 guys that kind of move fluidly. You know, so that'll be like an interesting heavyweight fight to look at.
Well, I agree. It would be interesting because he could stay there and take the punishment. Usyk is not like a one punch out type of guy.
Right.
But Usyk is a much superior boxer.
Yeah.
Much superior. So it would be good. That would be a good one to match those two. The other ones I think will end in a KO, you know, against him.
I think
he would be the one going KO.
Enough to beat the B-level guys, like the Dillian Whites and people like that. I'd say
I don't know. You know, we keep throwing Dillian White into the mix. Dillian White is a heavy puncher if he catches.
But
you know, so that would be a good match, you know, for those two.
But we'll come to that. But for me, Dominic Brazil, again, they need to lower his opposition.
You know, it would have to be the Dillian White going into a fight versus Otto. It would have to, like, Dillian White can't be overweight. He would have to have been training well, because sometimes he'll go into a fight and you'll be like, yo, this guy look really like out of shape. So he can't be out of shape going into an Otto fight, because Otto will move too much and it would tire him out.
So for me,
right,
you don't match
the power that he would have would be ineffective, because he wouldn't be able to get to him. He'll be looking like Brazil trying to catch him with slow punches or something.
Have you noticed he's always been matched really, really carefully, Dillian? You know, with guys who are not the best, but you know, or have they coming off losses?
I mean, listen, Dillian Whyte got a decent resume for somebody that has not had a title. I mean, compared to the champs, is like kind of equal to theirs.
I mean, compared to Trevor Bryan, the kind of resume that piece of shit Trevor Bryan's got. You know, I mean,
there he goes.
Well, I'm talking like, say for instance, Parker. First of all, Whyte beat Parker, so he already has that on that. But then Parker's only wins as a champ was against Kajanyu and Fury.
Yeah.
So like those aren't big names to have defended your title against. AJ, you know, he has Vlad on his record, so that's good. He also has Povetkin on his record, and Whyte doesn't. So, so that's good.
For me, they should match him against someone like a Charles Martin next. That's what these someone's.
Who's Dillian Whyte? Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing that.
Otto Wallin.
Oh, okay.
That would be a good fight. I think that would be a good fight.
Yeah, that wouldn't be bad. I wouldn't mind seeing him versus Ruiz. Ruiz got some fast hands, so he might be able to catch up with him with his movement.
Right. You know, we're really waiting. You know, I've been watching some of his training videos. I guess he's with Reynoso now, and he's trimming down. He's looking pretty good. So I'm anxious to see him again in the ring, and with who, I don't know. You know,
the rumor is him versus Wilder.
Yeah, well, we got to see if that works out. It'll be interesting. You guys want to talk about the possibility of Pacquiao? Or
we will do, but there's a list. We got to stick to this. So next is Adrian Broner against Santiago. I watched this fight about 2 hours ago, and I was not impressed with Broner at all.
Well, I think we were all expecting not to be impressed. You know, the guy was out 2 years. He suffers from alcoholism, gambling addiction, you know, violence, trouble. You know, the only time he keeps himself together, and he said, you've got to watch the post-fight press conference. He says he wants to fight 3 times more this year just to keep him out of trouble.
Well, he's got a problem. You know, it's not good.
He's got a problem. That's why he's called the problem. He's a problem to himself. He's a great boxer, though.
But it's so sad to see this man waste his prime years. What did you think of the performance, Spencer?
Adrian Broner don't throw enough punches. Like I don't know what stops him from throwing punch. He wants to be precise with his punches and like don't want to waste any punches. So it seems like he just waits and pops them like the guy when he got a good clean shot, but
the left hook
not enough. Like I mean, obviously it's enough to get him fight wins against this guy. I mean, his defense is tight. His defense is still tight. You know, whoever can't see that, like he's one of the better defensive.
He's a great defensive fighter. He is great. He's a great defensive fighter.
But he's not. He doesn't have enough output, and a lot of people realize that Broner don't throw punches, so they're just going to throw punches, even if they're not winning. You know, like connecting. Because
I'm sorry to cut you off there. We talked about this a while back. Ever since Maidana, he's been gun shy. He's gun shy to open up, you know, and take that kind of punishment again. And I think in his last few fights, you know, he wasn't training properly. He wasn't keeping active. He went in there to survive. He survived. He didn't get hurt, and he walked out with a couple of $1 million. Yeah, that's been the pattern. But now, if he really wants to get back into this, he's got to really take it seriously, or else he should just stay retired.
But they have to keep his opposition down. I'm not being rude or disrespectful to him because he's achieved a lot in this career. They've got to fight. He's got to be fighting guys that are like 200 in the rankings or 150 just to make sure he gets the win there. That's how far he is down. He's gone. His stock is gone.
Well, that's obvious. Yeah.
I mean, not for nothing. AB got one more big fight that he could get, and that's against Terrence Crawford. He could get that fight, but he would have to do some like you say, he wanted to fight 3 times this year. He would have to have like two of those next 3 fights, the third fight being against Bud Crawford. Those next 2 fights got to be at least against
but you can't
somebody like a Lipinets or Jesse Vargas, somebody like that.
But you can't give him anybody in the top 20 or even the top 30 because there's a real chance he's going to slip up and lose to someone he should.
No.
Yeah.
He probably won't follow the path that I just said, but he does based on his career or whatever. He still has a potentially one more big fight, and that's versus Bud Crawford. Yeah. But he would have to put together a string of wins against some guys that
very low level.
Well, yeah, but what about this scenario? What if he was able to drop? Because I've stood next to Adrian, and Adrian is a really small guy. He's gotten thick over the years with some muscle, and he's got more body fat on him now.
Yeah.
But when I stood next to him, I mean, I couldn't believe how small he was. But here's the deal. What I see that could happen with him is any of those top guys at 140, like Regis or even Lopez, or any of them, he could get in there and make a good last payday and look fairly good if he could get himself in that kind of shape.
Yeah,
because also the extra weight slows you down, you know, with a guy like that, with that kind of a small body.
Do you think that
to throw punches?
He would have to be starting to move to 140 right now, like trying to cut the weight to get to 140 right now.
So was that fight at 140, wasn't it? Or was it one? It was 140, wasn't it?
It was welterweight.
I thought they said it was contracted for 140 originally. This fight.
It was originally supposed to be at 140, but being that both the guys was having trouble, so it wasn't just AB. Both Santiago was having trouble making the weight too. So they redid the contract and said it was just going to be for a welterweight fight. Because Santiago came in at like 146.
Right. That's right.
Well, I'm just looking at his career here, and it started to go wrong up until the time he fought Maidana. His career was going swimmingly nice. Then he had this string of victories over the Carlos Molina's, Emmanuel Taylor, the bum sort of guys. And then he lost to Sean Porter, obviously. Then he fought that Khabib guy for the WBA super title. So surely someone somewhere is going to create a title for him to fight for. Because that's how he manages to get these sort of title shots, you know?
Yeah.
Well,
Isn't Regis fighting Hooker at 147?
I believe he is, yeah. I'm just looking at the...
No. Ortiz is fighting Hooker at 147.
Sorry, yeah. I'm just looking at all the champions now at welterweight, and there's nobody there he can beat. I mean, he could probably beat Jamal. Is it Jamal James? But,
he may be able to beat him.
Yeah, so there's a belt he could fight for. But that
they should put him against Jamal James. If AB can't beat Jamal James, then he really knows he ain't got no business in the ring.
Mario Berosh at 140. You know, but I think that Jamal James fight would be his only way to a world title. Once he gets a bit of hardware, he can then haggle and then, have a unification away. But
Barrios might be not that. He could do Barrios.
We're all being very logical, but, if you look at his personality, the guy is emotionally in trouble. It's he needs to stay in training and really get his head into this, which I don't think he could ultimately do.
Yeah, he's not disciplined enough.
No, he's lost his discipline. That's the problem. He lost
him. Mayweather gave him too much. Mayweather... you can't blame Mayweather because he tried to steer him in the right direction. He's the one that went the different path with all this law and all this bullshit.
I guess if you're looking at Mayweather as a role model, then you really got a sad life.
Yeah, Mayweather can get away with it because Mayweather. Broner, he tried too hard to be like Mayweather. That's where the problem started. He was never going to be as good. At 31, right, Mayweather was in the prime of his career. And now Broner's not. He's wasted his prime years. He's now on the downward slope to being a Luis Collazo type of guy. And that's the best way I can really describe him.
Yeah.
Well, I got to say, I watched an interview with him. It was about, I think I posted it on Main Event. Yeah. And Adrian was totally honest and upfront and nice. I mean, he recognizes what's going on with him. He's just got these compulsions that he's finding hard to get over, you know? Tyson was kind of like the same thing for a while.
Yeah, but the problem with Broner was he had yes men around him. If you have yes people around you, you're never going to get the truth. You can't have your whole career with yes men behind. You know, it doesn't work. It's crazy.
Well, only a few guys have been smart like that. You know?
Like for a lot of them, like he's the leader of the entourage. If he's the smartest guy in that entourage, it's the sad entourage.
But surely
that's a good point. Good point.
Surely somebody must say, "Look, Adrian, you're slipping. You're blowing it. What are you doing? Sort your career and sort your life out because you're better than them."
Yeah, when those guys do it, I guess those are the guys like Floyd when he does it. Then Adrian go on social media talk about he want to kill himself and all this stuff. Like, you know, Adrian Broner is crazy. Like he got mental issues and he really needs to talk to somebody.
But the way he's going, he's going to be another. Who was that guy, that Argentinian guy who fought Muhammad Ali in the 70s? Tom.
Argentina. Oh, Oscar Bonavena.
He's going to end up like that. I've got a funny feeling he's going to end up like that, guys. You know.
Well,
in fact, I'm not going to talk about the deal. I'm not going to talk.
He doesn't have a trainer or a strong personality in his life. You know, I think his father trained him for a little while, didn't he? Or was involved with his corner. So. But even as a kid, I mean, he didn't have the stability of someone to be a role model.
Yeah, but he's got 5 kids
to keep him strong.
He's got 5 kids. You would have thought, for the sake of those kids, he'd sort his mental health out, you know, and his life.
Well,
if you don't have the right role model,
he's an alcoholic.
Okay. Yeah, he needs some help. He needs some counseling.
In life, you can't blame other people. You got to look in the mirror and say, "Look, this is what I've done. I fucked up. I can do this."
Yeah, it's true. We all have personal responsibility, but Nathan, you know, you and I grew up with very strong family values. Adrian was fighting in the street when he was a kid. His father, and was pitting him in fights in the street. I mean, come on. You know, it's a different culture, man. It's a different mindset. He didn't have that opportunity. You know, Ta, I don't know what your background is, but you sound like you had to put together.
Listen, exactly. Like, I haven't had to go through what that dude has been through. He's the leader. He's the head of a company. Like, he had AB Promotions, had boxes under him. He did a lot for somebody that came from where he came from. Right. You know, like, we like to knock him and like he's over, he's messed up. But considering his peers and where he comes from, he's one of the success stories.
Oh, yeah, you
know what I mean?
I'm just saying, I think he's better than what he's better. I don't want him to be a statistic and say that his career he could have been this and that, because he had some talent, you know, and he's kind of.
Still does.
It's sad. It still does.
Yeah.
No, without question. Like I said, that's why I said he needs some mental health counseling or something like that. Like, he needs somebody to help him fight through them demons that he's going through.
Tyson Fury's a mess up as well. Tyson Fury's a mess. You know, and he's the same situation, but you know. Anyway,
I don't know about Tyson Fury.
Nah. Tyson Fury has got his stuff together now, you know.
I don't know about the whole mental stuff that he like to claim, but you know, I have little, like, my eyebrow was raised with that whole the extent of what it is. Now, I do to a certain extent believe that, like, a lot of people have certain mental stuff that they have with them. You know, some people could go through life without it ever being a problem, like whatever they have to deal with, it ever being a problem to others. But there's some that, you know, it might affect others. Now, Tyson Fury, his his wanting to be a party and like I think his comeback, although he might have been suffering mentally or depressed mentally, what he might have been deeming himself like a real mental issue. Because I have, in his whole comeback time since he came back and fought Tyson, I have hardly heard him talk about mental health or anything. Like I don't, but maybe I'm missing the news stories. But I hardly hear him talk about mental health issues.
Well, they're not in the news stories. They're in the interviews. When they bring it up. I've seen several of them. But he said it himself. If you've seen him on Hot Boxing with Mike Tyson, he talks about how he's got to constantly train to keep his mood up.
Guys,
that's what's doing it for him.
We better move on. We've still got a bit to cover. So,
okay.
Aaron plans to explore a Pacquiao fight. Porter next. Yeah, to explore a Pacquiao fight. And then Porter next. What was the article? God, I'm
Now, no, I mean, I know about that one anyway. Aaron was discussing maybe getting Pacquiao to fight. I'm not sure if Bob's going to be able to give him that. Bob might try to get it in Saudi Arabia or in the Middle East, since they seem to be throwing money at people now.
Right.
So he might try to get a Pacquiao versus Bud Crawford fight there if the people in the Middle East will buy that fight. It's Pacquiao, so who knows? But and Pacquiao supposedly don't want to really fight in the States again because of the whole taxes, and all of that other stuff. So, so it's a possibility. Pacquiao, and as far as Aaron been paying Terrence Crawford. If you let Aaron tell it, the past few fights he's been losing money on Terrence Crawford. He had to pay for Khan $5 million, and then Bud Crawford, he had to pay him more than he paid Khan. So he's not, and that fight didn't really turn a profit. Brooke, he had to kind of pay him more than what he wanted to pay him, just so that it could kind of get some type of interest in him. But the fights aren't drawing what Bob had hoped it would from Bud. So a Pacquiao fight, it might, and he's about to leave Top Rank. It might be a way to call it a day. Get one last payday out of Bud.
It's a shame because Bud is, I think, people say that Canelo's the pound for pound. I think Bud is, not Canelo.
But Bud to me is,
I would put it too.
But it's, I really don't like to do a number two, because I try to stick to that whole pound for pound definition of what they was meaning, and it's really only supposed to be 1 pound for pound guy, and then it's not really supposed to be a list. But so I would agree that if between those two, I would put Bud ahead, and partly because Bud has faced, Canelo has too, but he's not always been successful. Bud has faced different styles. He has multiple ways to win. He can fight in different ways. He can fight on the front foot, fight on the back foot. He can fight lefty, righty. He's defensively sound enough. He's not Pernell Whitaker, but he's defensively sound enough that you're not going to just beat him up. And he got enough pop that you can't just bully him.
Right, guys. We've got 9 minutes left, and we got.
Can we talk about the Burchell fight?
Yeah, we can. Yeah, we didn't mention that.
Let's go for it. Let's go for it. Let's go for it.
Right.
We can run with.
You want to set it up, Nathan? Set it up.
I thought it was a good knockout. Great fight.
Right.
What do you think?
Well, Spencer and I kind of agreed last time that Burchell was going to be too much for him, but after watching the way he came in and all the weight he gained, I was going, this may be too big of a weight gain after they weighing in. What did he come up 14 pounds heavier?
Yeah, that was that might have been something he wanted to try to gain that weight so he can make sure he knocks out Valdez or something. It ain't work.
Yeah, but he couldn't compete with the speed and the movement.
Yeah,
and
I was not
he
expecting.
got clocked. No.
Truth be told, I was not expecting that from Valdez. I was expecting Valdez to try to actually trade with him and not move so much, trade more.
Right.
And I guess Burchell might have thought that too, and he wasn't.
No,
he was moving.
And the jab, man. Oh,
yeah, that was
jab off so fast.
And he was switching. And he was switching for the fight. I was like, oh wow.
Guys,
you know,
I've got another thing to talk about after this. Has anybody seen that footage of Chris Lovejoy?
Who?
There's some footage of Chris Lovejoy. Did you watch it?
I have.
Let me quickly show Spencer.
Chris Lovejoy. Yeah, I did. Did you?
No, I didn't.
Let me show you. This is dreadful.
Yeah, Lovejoy, they have some footage on him. He has like 19 wins and 19 knockouts or something.
Here's a bit of Lovejoy's. This guy is a bum, a real bum.
So
let me show you.
I hate it when you call fighters bums.
So wait, if we fighting him,
it's about a minute long.
Why we
Tijuana or something, of course.
What's up with Lovejoy though? What's in the news?
Got 19 wins with 19 knockouts.
I got all of that. I'm saying like, what's new about him?
Yeah. Nothing. He was explaining why there's no footage of him.
Oh, I thought he was on the list.
Okay. Oh no, sorry, no. I'll go back to next on the list. So next on the list is the Dillian White fight has been moved to the 27th of March.
Yeah, they had a new venue, right? They moved
in Gibraltar, which is a British colony thing. And next in the news, there's called a World Cup. Did you read this? A matchmaker, a World Cup.
I've seen the article. Yeah.
Interesting.
I love tournaments. So I'm all for tournaments.
Yeah, if they actually keep it together and they actually get all the fights done and not fall apart halfway through.
Yeah.
So
like the last one did.
There will be no draws in it. There'll be no draws. They'll have an extra round to decide who wins. Which I think it's nice. It means in the prize if you win.
How the hell would they do that though?
I don't know. It'll be tough. But it'll probably only be.
Because that means they would have to know who's winning the fight already going.
Yeah.
Like they would have to call out the winner of the round after the end of the round. Like how would they know? Or they just going to tally up the score, let them wait until the scores are called, and they're like, "Oh, it's a draw." Go back in there for another 3 minutes.
They won't do
like, nah, that would.
Yeah, like in the Contender. Remember the Contender? They did that.
Yeah. It's like, y'all tired. Y'all gotta go back in there and fight some more.
No!
Like, come on, man. Like, I done got tired. I done used all my energy to try to get back up.
But the prize is
20 minutes later.
If you win, you get a world ranking and one of those regional belts like the WBO Intercontinental or one of those silly belts they hand out, Like
listen, I'm cool with that. I love tournaments, and I think that's what boxing really should do. They should have things like regional fights, so that they should have area fights, and then the area winners fight the regional, different regions, different areas fight the regional, different regionals fight the national, the WBO, like that.
WBO Europe, the WBO Africa,
Let me pose this scenario here. We used that. I'm going to use Sonny Liston as an example. When Sonny Liston came on the scene, you know what he did? He fought every contender from, 15 all the way up to number 1 and knocked them all out. Those were the tournaments where guys actually fought each other. Now these tournaments I'm not against tournaments, but they're attractive because people have to fight each other that win. Okay. So in order to be in the tournament, you got to fight the guy who won and you won, and then you move forward. So everybody gets a chance. It's like, but nowadays, the reason we have all these belts and everything else, people sidestep each other. That's what become attractive.
I mean, also, Tom, the sport did expand. So, like, for people to like the influx of the belts or whatever the case is, that's going to come with the expansion of the sport.
Yeah.
Just like saying in our American sports, in football, it's not the same it's not the same when the first Super Bowl. There's more rounds, there's more teams that go into the playoffs. You know what I mean? Like the sport expanded, so you got to, make do for that.
The WBA had a tournament in the 60s. The WBA had a tournament, didn't they? When they created the title, is that correct?
I think they did, yeah. But
It was Fraser. It was only Tyrell that won it. Only Tyrell won it, I think. Or it was
they had a tournament when they stripped, I think, Ali of the championship to see who was going to win. And then, when we had the belts floating around, they had things like that going on.
Don King did a little mini tournament with the belts with Mike Tyson, Trevor Burbick, Tony Tucker, all of those dudes. When they all fought, that was like a mini tournament to become an undisputed champion.
Right, but those guys had to fight each other.
But yeah, my
point is, I have nothing against tournaments, and I agree with you about the expansion of the sport and whatnot. I'm just saying, my upset is that a lot of these guys who should be fighting each other are not. That's all I'm saying.
And part I will say the sanctioning bodies are a majority at fault because they write rules, and if they follow their rules, it'll be good. But they have this last rule that has, we get to choose just in case the written rules we don't like, or we don't agree with it. We got a committee that can oversee those rules. Like,
we've run out of time.
All right.
Do you want me to set up another recording? And we'll talk about or not or.
Listen, I gotta get out of here, so I can't do another half.
Great talking to you, Spencer.
So you got time for another recording? Or not? Or do you want me to let you go? Or should we?
I'm here.
Okay. I'm going to stop the thing now and the broadcast, and I'll send you a thing back in 15 minutes. I wanted to do a different sort of show about a film.
Well, I won't be available. I'm actually driving right now, and about 20 minutes, I won't be available.
Okay, we'll do something on Friday if you're free or whatever, this sort of time if you're free.
Yeah, I'm good for Friday.
I wanted to do a show about Bruce Lee. And
well, I'd have to go back and research it. I mean, I saw a few of his films, and I did some research on him years